So, yet again, canceled academic Jordan Peterson, canceled by the woke mob, was here live on stage in front of a live studio audience on a worldwide tour. And this video is an excerpt from that, where you can see how canceled he is right here on the stage. And somebody is asking him the question, why do conservatives keep losing? So let's see.
Conservatives keep losing. The left controls media, universities, and government. How can conservatives be effective, and how can they win?
I love the idea that the woke control the media. That's fascinating. Fascinating.
They have to tell a better story.
Oh.
Fundamentally, that's it. And then I think not only do they have to tell a better story, they have to act out a better story. That's the same with religious believers. It's like, you want your God to win? It's like, get your act together, right? You be a shining light on the hill for your faith. And then that's how you win.
Wait, so you have to tell a better story. Is he just freely admitting that the Bible is boring? That's a bold statement to take. Huh.
You know, and we shouldn't even be thinking about winning in some real sense. We should be thinking about how to make things better. And so the conservative question is, how could we be more effective at making things better than those who don't abide by the traditions we regard as valuable? And that's the real question. It's very, very difficult to sort that out.
Because conservatism doesn't really concern itself with making things better. It's about maintaining either a status quo or regressing back to a status quo that you prefer. That's what the word means, you know? Like you can say that the conservative point of view is to make things better. For who? For whomst? Not for everybody.
One of the things, I didn't know that I was a conservative before everybody started telling me that I was, but apparently I am. So, and one of the benefits of that is that there are conservative stories that are quite compelling.
Like what?
And they haven't been told well for quite a long time. And one of maybe the core story that's compelling on the conservative side is something like that meaning and responsibility are integrally linked.
Meaning and responsibility are integrally linked. Why? Why? There are plenty of people that have found direct meaning in their lives, and it did not involve responsibility whatsoever. That's a very... I feel like he had no idea what he was supposed to say, and he's throwing together words again. It's very strange.
And that's not a story that's been well told in our culture for at least since the mid-'60s. It's just not told at all. And I've noticed that...
Oh, he's talking about the American dream propaganda, you know? The nuclear family. Hey there, make sure you vote Republican. That way you too can have a wife in a pretty sundress who obeys your every order and won't tell the cops if you smack her around. 2 children that are being abused by your local priest, but you don't mind because Christ wouldn't want you to pay attention to that. Also, no black people in your neighborhood. Okay, all right, sure, buddy.
That story has a universal impact on the audiences that I've been addressing, to walk people through the notion, for example, that if you find yourself in dire straits at some point in your life, that one of the arcs that you might have managed to build yourself will be constructed of the social relations made possible by the people for whom you took responsibility. And
yeah, okay. I feel like if he had a mouthful of spaghetti right now and was just trying to say the same thing, it would make as much sense. Sure. Okay.
Everyone understands that as soon as you lay it out. It's like, well, of course that's going to be the case, obviously.
Okay, fine. You know what? Fine. I'm not going to be that guy and just be like, her, you're just sharing a bunch of nonsense. Let's try and understand what he's saying, okay? Let's do it.
Well, that if you find yourself in dire straits at some point in your life, that
If you find yourself in dire straits, if you find yourself in a bad situation later on in your life,
one of the arcs that you might have managed to build yourself will be
one of the arcs you might have managed to build yourself, one of your pivotal changing points that you built yourself,
constructed of the social relations
might be built from an integration of
made possible by the people for whom you took responsibility.
So if you're taking responsibility for people, that can largely can be what's influencing an arc in your life that now made things bad. Does anybody else have a different interpretation? I'm curious. Yeah, I don't know. Arc. I don't know. If somebody has a better interpretation of that, I'm all ears.
And everyone understands that as soon as you lay it out. It's like, well, of course that's going to be the case, obviously.
Oh, obviously.
If you have been a credit, if you have conducted yourself credibly in the eyes of the people you've interacted with, the probability that they're going to be hungry for the opportunity to reciprocate is very, very high.
Okay, so now you're talking about mutualism. So if you are of value and of benefit in helping other people, that they will want to maybe help and or benefit you in return. That's totally fine. That's called mutualism. That's not very conservative, however. Also, I don't know why it has anything to do with dire straits, but maybe you're talking about in the sake of if you find yourself at a low point, other people might then help you out because you were helping them. Okay, sure.
And so one core conservative message is something like meaning through responsibility. And that's a very, very deep message. I mean, that's the idea of bearing your cross. It's the same idea.
No, that is not what you were talking about. You were talking about being of value to other people, mutualism. That's what you were talking about. Nothing about bearing your own cross, shouldering your own burden. Not what you were talking about. Those are not the same things. Those are very different. Also, the conservative position, especially in this country, is directly opposed to the concept of helping anybody, like at all.
It's that the deeper the responsibility, the more radical the meaning. Radical in terms of its capacity to transform and sustain. And I think that's just true. It's sort of, it's as soon as you think it through, you understand it's true. And it's quite the crazy idea, that your life would deepen and broaden in precise proportion to the degree that you were willing to take radical responsibility.
Is it radical responsibility, or is it taking chances? Is it being open and willing to engage? Is it, and then it doesn't even come down to things that are like privileges, like having the ability, the time, the space, the encouragement, the support in order to really innovate, yourself, your surroundings, et cetera, et cetera. If you just want to throw it all together as like a responsibility sort of thing, you're missing 90% of what can actually provide that type of meaning. It's very strange.
And that's something you can experiment with, and that's a message conservatives should and could and should deliver, but also, more importantly, act out.
Yeah, if they actually tried to do any type of mutualism in the conservative movement, they would be called communists, okay? They do that all the time. No, they are not in any way supportive of this idea. But if he's advocating that conservatives should be more mindful and try and help other people, I support his encouragement.
Right? That's the fundamental issue, is the acting out. And I think that young people they're literally dying for that message. Because we are in a meaning crisis in some real sense. Cataclysmic consequence of the death of God, let's say. what should orient you in life? It's, well, certainly the willingness to dare to accept radical responsibility. That's a good answer to the question of how do you find meaning in life?
You think he's only encouraging helping those you are responsible for? Maybe, but at the same time, like, this conversation is framed along why do conservatives keep losing? And that, he's saying they have to tell better stories. They have to encourage this type of thing, something that evokes and speaks on everybody's basic fundamental level that people will want to embrace. So, I mean, sure, it could be along the lines of only help those that you're responsible for, you have a direct connection to. But if everybody did that anyway, it still would be objectively a good thing. It would be more tribalistic forms of mutualism, sure, but I would still say that's far more of a progressive stance than what he believes it is.
You could try just doing the best you possibly can for other people. And I don't mean in a sense of bitter self-immolation, that's not going to sustain itself. It's not a good strategy. But you could just try that and see what happens. It's like, you kind of know what's going to happen, because there'll be people who take advantage of you, but they even might learn with time. Anyone capable of shame is certainly going to be shamed by the realization that they've betrayed someone who's been good to them. And insofar as they have any capacity for shame whatsoever, even the worst of people can find a pathway to redemption through that kind of shame, but that won't even emerge unless...
Jordan's gone off on like a little boy tangent where he's pretending there's a storybook in his head and he's talking about something that has nothing to do with the topic. I would like him to get back to this whole conservative strategy thing, but let's see. Let's give him just a little bit more, see if he can get back on track.
There's been someone who was good to them that they could betray. Now, and one of the things that struck me from reading Carl Jung, again, the Swiss psychoanalyst who was a stunning genius, he believed that he was very obsessed with what had happened in Germany in the 1930s and the 1940s, and then also with the emergence of the potential for nuclear annihilation after the Second World War. And his hypothesis was something like, we have to become as good as we are technologically powerful.
Hey,
right now
good.
We're more technologically powerful than we are good.
Sure.
And he believed that was in part because our technological enterprise had expanded in some sense exponentially since the dawn of the scientific revolution, but that our ethical wisdom had stagnated, or, well, stagnated is good enough, and that's not acceptable, because as you become more powerful, you better become better, because otherwise that power your foolishness you'll be unable to control the power that you've developed.
Okay, all right. You know what? This is brainworms, but look, I do have something to say about it. Okay, I agree. We should be more good than we are technologically advanced. I 100% agree. And I think probably the greatest metric that you can base that on is on the idea of improving the human condition, that we try and reach out to make sure everybody is lifted up. People are no longer starving in the street. They're not suffering. People have access to all of the same, benefits in society, that we have some degree of balance in lifting people up, that we treat each other with dignity and respect. I think that these are things that absolutely lend towards a much more conscious and aware society, less likely to want to just willy-nilly jump into some form of an Armageddon. And I would say that conservatism is directly opposed to that. Directly. And in fact, wants us to go, and like as even has been kind of stated in this video, wants us to go back to beliefs and perspectives of like the 1950s. Like Jordan himself was even saying it, like Back then when we had this story and blah blah blah, and now he's like, but we need better ones, but they want to, and it doesn't make any sense. It's all twisted up in that weird noodle of a brain. This is not going to help conservatives win. The simple fact of the matter is that conservatives won't win, because the very nature of conservatism is to try and be the brake pedals or the reverse gear for society. And short of nuclear Armageddon or a complete destabilization and breaking down of society, we're only going forward, baby. We're only going forward. Oh well.